We lived in Houston, Texas, probably for about 10 years, and during that time, we had some Mormon missionaries come by the house. We weren't actively going to church anywhere. They invited our family, myself, my brother, my dad. We started attending the Mormon temple. As a matter of fact, we were baptized in that, my dad, my brother, and myself. And the only thing I really remember about it, Pastor, was we got a $2 bill after we stepped out of the baptistry. And so that was pretty exciting to an 8-year-old.
Right.
And we kind of continued going to that Mormon temple once we moved back to North Carolina, off and on sporadically, but it was just myself and my brother.
All right, but there came a time when you were, I guess, a young adult that things really changed for you, and you started your journey toward Christ. Can you share that with us?
Yes, sir. When I met Diana, who is my wife now, one of the things that she said was, it was that whole dating evangelism, which I highly do not recommend for teenagers. But in order to date her, I had to go to church.
Okay.
And so we started attending a church in York, South Carolina. It was Central Baptist Church with Pastor Talley there. And in that church, I don't remember a lot about his messages. I remember hearing a lot of what you preached this morning about sin and the wages of sin. But we had a Sunday school teacher that reinforced that a lot. And I can remember one particular Sunday morning after hearing those messages, he stood in the classroom and he'd always stand in front of the doorway. Morris Palmer, he was about 6'5", 300 plus pounds. Big guy. And he'd fill the doorway up, and one of the things he would do is pull you into that big old chest and give you a hug and tell you how much he loved you. And I can remember one Sunday morning, I'd always try to duck him, but this particular Sunday morning I couldn't. And so as I got to that door, he pulled me in, he gave me a big hug, and he said, "Chris, I love you." And I remember asking this, "Morris, why do you love me? I don't hear that at home, so why am I hearing it here?" And he very clearly told me, he said, "Chris, I love you because Christ loves you."
Wow.
That rocked my world that morning. I remember going into the service, the pastor
So
preached.
that happened before the worship service.
Before the worship service.
Now you're going into the worship service.
Went into the worship service. I listened to preacher Ray Talley preach the message. Couldn't tell you what it's about.
Yeah.
But I remember at the end he gave an invitation, and it was an old-fashioned altar call.
Right.
And as I stood there and heard that, I felt a welling up inside, and my heart was beating out of my chest, and I was gripping the back of that pew, probably like many people do.
Right.
And I didn't know a whole lot about church, but I knew these words: "Thou shalt not be moved." And God said, "I have a better plan for you." And I can remember releasing, going down front, got down there, the pastor said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to receive Jesus Christ." And I can remember him saying, I'm proud of you, let me pray with you. And then he sent me off into a room with another gentleman who I believe was a deacon of the church. And when we got in there, he said, "Chris, what are you here for?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to receive Christ." And he said, "Okay." He said, "So what does that mean?" And I said, "Well, I've realized that I'm a sinner, and I got to ask for forgiveness for that sin, and then I got to make Christ Lord of my life." And he said, "Well, why would you do that?" And I said, "Because I believe beyond the shadow of a doubt that he is the Son of God and come and died for my sins, and his work on the cross is forgiveness for me. And I want to do that."
Did you do that at that moment?
I did. He told me that we would pray, and so I bowed my head and I waited for him to pray so I could pray after him.
Right.
And that didn't happen. It seemed like 2 or 3 minutes. It was probably 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I remember looking up, and he looked at me and said, "Well, are you going to pray?" And I said, "Well, I was waiting for you." And he said, "I've already accepted Christ. It's your turn."
Yes.
And so I remember bowing my head and praying, asking God to forgive me my sins and making him Lord of my life. And from that day on, there was without a shadow of a doubt that I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior.